Hello, YouTube friends, real and virtual digital buddies. Anyway, I'm going to just do a little ramble. I'm going to try and keep this short as well. And I've been attempting actually to do a video. My sort of encompassment, my reflection on the age of fission, what I've called the age of fission. And I'm realizing in the last while, over the last few months, 5-6 months, it's been a lot more difficult to produce paintings, sculptures, works that I normally, when I come to the studio, there is an excitement that I feel about making something, and it's changed over the last 5-6 months drastically, actually, and it's been a lot more difficult. And I'm going to, for myself, but I'll share this with people who are keeping track of some of the things that I'm thinking and my reflections on the time that we're in. And it's a difficult period, and I feel that my own work is no longer, let me put it this way. There is, for me, unfortunately, I think what is happening is there is a level of, to put it drastically, hopelessness that is starting to infiltrate in my life, and I'll explain why. Not in my personal life or people around me I talked to. I had, a great get together with friends a couple of days ago, and we're talking about art projects and doing things. And I have an exterior that I present, which is very, I will not project this inner feeling, this level of despair on a certain level that I feel. I won't project this if I can avoid it onto the world, because it's something I need to deal with. But it's something we're all dealing with, I believe. I'm no different from anyone else in that regard. I think we're all dealing with this level. There's a level of hopelessness now becoming very prevalent. And I think, the way I work in terms of making paintings, it's a barometer in a sense. It just doesn't chronicle, but it also is a barometer of my own feelings, the way I feel about being alive at any given time. And I think what I have understood, what I have termed the age of fission, a period of time that is so monumental in our history, in human history, and I'm part of that. We all are part of this moment, this age, and what I've noticed, it's becoming more difficult to do the things that I used to do within the context of hope. That in order to make a painting, in order to actually do anything, think about this. In order for you to do anything, this is how I feel myself. There is a fundamental level of optimism and hope. Now, my conclusion, after this nuclear plant blew up in Japan, the Fukushima Daiichi plant, which has 3 full core meltdowns and meltouts, melt-throughs, the cores, these nuclear plants, these generating plants have cores, and they've gone missing. And recently they have allowed us to know that there are huge radioactive releases from reactor 2, and all 3 of them and 4, with the fuel pools gone, are emitting enormous amounts of radiation, which can never be reconciled within the framework of our biology, what I consider to be the right side and the wrong side. It's not just environmentalism. It's like, well, yes, it is environmentalism, but it's kind of like there will not be an environment based on these releases, even from this just one plant, and there are 450 or plus with other research facilities producing this toxic material that we can't handle. So anyway, you all know this already. People who are listening to this know all this. I don't have to go through this over and over. But what I'm going to create is a context about the way I feel. And I'm trying to sort of see this as an event that has occurred that is a challenge for all of humanity. It's for each individual in the sense that we have our inner battles that we need to fight to do the right thing, which fits into the larger picture as well. So my reflection on this, my understanding, how I tie into this bigger picture, having understood this as living in the age of fission, an age like no other age, because these are elements, these are materials, toxic materials produced by humanity, people produce this. It's not some sort of meteor coming to destroy the earth and we're all kind of like pulling our hair out and going crazy or something, or just accepting, okay, it's going to happen. This is something we've chosen, we've accepted, we've been complicit with. Like I've said, I've been complicit with. I didn't understand the gravity of this until Fukushima actually blew up. And the background to this feeling that I'm beginning, that is, I'm struggling with this, and I am attempting to produce the work that chronicles, but obviously the idea that I have that is in the background is not sort of a Jim Jones kind of thing, but physically, this is a fact, people. This is a fact. This is not my sort of theological ramblings about the omnipotent being. These are actual radionuclides being released in amounts that are just staggering, which create this feeling within me as a real human being having real necessities, as in clean water, clean air, food that is nutritional. This is something fundamental to being a human being, being a life form on this planet. So I'm taking this within the context of being alive and trying to somehow create a spirit within myself that says, yes, there is a future. This is very crucial. I think in all of history, the enormous tragedies and challenges and wars and destruction and the horrible things that have occurred always occurred within the backdrop of, well, tomorrow is another day on some level. Tomorrow is another day. Which in fact creates, no matter how difficult a situation may be, a sense of optimism and hope. And hope is not what I do not, I create a distinction between faith and belief. It's like hope is different. It's like I don't need faith or belief to have hope. It's a different thing. And this is like fundamental to each life form, even a plant that exists. There have been studies where plants become dysfunctional if they're surrounded by really negative energy. And what can be more negative than an energy, an isotope, an atom that emanates, that produces energy that is contrary to our very essence, to our life essence. So my reflection on this, and I'm going to wrap it up now, is it's been very difficult for me personally to produce the work that originates out of this sense of optimism and hope because, and here is, I've mentioned this in my last video, I actually am beginning to think that this is not an extinction event from the point of view that in history, as we imagine, if we look back and if we trust science to understand this to some extent, I have grave doubts about this as well, but it's quite possible with volcanic eruptions and major earthquakes and even monumental fires on Earth, or even an object hitting the Earth that destroys huge populations of life forms like the dinosaurs. Why did the meteor only pick on dinosaurs and leave all the little guys around? I don't get that. And all of a sudden everything comes back. It gets rid of the big 10-story Rexes, Dinosaurus Rexes. It doesn't make sense. But anyway, this is not an event like this. This is something that humanity created in 1938 under Strassman Hahn, who invented nuclear fission, the splitting of the atom. So my thought in this is once this occurred, There is a segment in the population, and this is rather dark and devious, who actually delight, what I say, delight in the pain and the suffering. And this is now also coming to the foreground in this Pizzagate story, which I actually suspect will be the Achilles heel of these disgusting reptiles who run the joint in the background, behind the curtain. These are people, not the front people like the Clintons and the Soros and the Kissingers. These are just the usual suspect, the front people. There's a nasty syndicate cabal type bunch. I don't know how many, whether it's dozens or a few or five, I don't know, or 1,000, I don't know. But my conclusion has been that we are now being subjected not to an extinction, but an extermination. And this is very, very disturbing, because within this context of an extermination, if I can only imagine what it was like to be in one of the extermination camps, whether it's under Stalin or Hitler, what is it? Where do you draw the hope to take another breath? And I think a lot of people died of broken hearts or physical depletion completely, but some people survived. And I believe the people that survived maintained a level of optimism in the sense that there is another tomorrow, another day. But under the circumstances now, the way I understand what I call the age of fission, we are not dealing with this. The people who we entrust to take care of business, called governments and organizations and agencies, people that we supposedly elect, or even if we don't elect them, they have our best interests at heart? Obviously not. Because if this was true, then Fukushima would have been addressed by the entire global community of governments. And they're not doing it. And the reason they're not doing it is because this is my conclusion, all of governments are run not out of countries, but are run out of some other central cabal, a syndicate, a criminal syndicate within the most precise terms, like the nuclear criminal syndicate, an arm of this destruction. And there are other arms, the pharmaceuticals, the agro, the Monsanto types, which joined up with Bayer. What a beautiful combination that is, to take a pharmaceutical and an agro business, put them together, and you put the last nail in the coffin there. So this sense that I'm feeling, the difficulty that I'm having personally of producing work, is rooted within this feeling of a fundamental despair that as a human community, and I have associations with people that are very optimistic and positive, not passive. These people are not passive in any sense or accepting. They're quite, their life drive is quite enormous. It's quite magnificent. Some of the people I associate with who produce art, who are aware of the gravity of the situation, which give me hope. But there is a fundamental feeling that I have. We are not what many people, and people I respect, like Dana Durnford, who has done a complete survey of the Pacific, the BC, British Columbia coastline, and found virtually no life in the tidal pools, who says it's an extinction event. And I agree, yes, it's extinction, but what is even more phenomenal and fundamental is that I believe this to be an extermination. And this creates, it comes out on the same side, obviously, extinction, extermination. Yes, an extermination ends up in the disappearance of that which is exterminated. And the extermination is not just people, it's all of life. This is the disturbing part. It is all of life. And I think for us to rally in some form, and I will continue to produce, I will push through this if I can, my what is a block, and I know exactly what the block is. And that, I say, well, what for? Why should I bother? And I know people that say, well, just accept, and why bother? Just accept. But it's not our nature, because to take a breath means to resist dying. It's a conundrum. It is like a fundamental life conundrum. And the difference from now and 80 years ago is that 80 years ago, no matter how horrendous the circumstance would be, there was an off switch. Whether, let's say, even if all the volcanoes blew up for 100,000 years, well, I don't know how life will come back in 100,000 years, but with the radioactivity, which is ubiquitous everywhere, there is no such thing as life coming back in 100,000 years. Or if it does, it's going to be like an arm, a hand coming out of my head. It's not what we understand to be life. And this is dark. This is ugly. This is not something that I would say, well, let's see what it's like to have a hand coming out of our forehead. It's not what I signed up for as a life form on this planet. And the people that are responsible for this, I doubt they will ever be held accountable, because the very essence of this destruction is continuous. So whether or not, I take no pleasure in punishing anyone for this, because the punishment itself, I suppose, yeah, there is a kind of feeling of retribution, but to what end? If this in fact is true, what I say or what I believe to be actually happening, what is it that we gain from the punishment thing, other than only if there is an expectation of continuing and living? Do you see what I'm saying? There is no point in punishment if there is no what? It's like everything is sort of on the block here. And is there a window? Is there an opportunity to recover in this? Possibly, but not in the circumstances we're in, with the denial, the massive denial that is going on, the ignorance, the continuous bloggers and vloggers on YouTube. What a boring bunch, keeping track of this spectacle called the Trump, the spectacle of the Trump, which I actually quite find entertaining. I think he's been the most entertaining, refreshing thing on YouTube, on the news sites, instead of all the usual types. That the guy, I mean, you listen to the guy and it's scary. This nation elected the village idiot. And in the sense that, the fool was as in King Lear, the fool was allowed to get away with shit that, Trump is getting away with shit because he's the fool. But he doesn't have the enlightenment. At least I don't think he does. But this is where our hope comes from, that if we truly feel that there is a tomorrow, then we have children and grandchildren, and we say to ourselves, this is meaningful and valuable. But, like in Iraq, women are no longer in Mosul, in places and cities in Iraq, women are not having children because the deformities are just so brutal and horrible. The depleted uranium that the US military and the British military and all the other small military types that clung on to this one, the depleted uranium bullets that they shot into the desert and basically made that entire environment toxic for eternity, as far as that's concerned. There's not going to be any children. Iraq is finished. I mean, just from that point of view, there are not going to be a next generation. Or in 2 or 3 generations, there won't be what are known to be Iraqis. Based on the information that I have, this is what this toxic material does. It lasts an eternity. These curium and plutonium, they last for thousands and tens of thousands of years. We don't have a chance against it. So anyway, I want to clarify this, and I'm going to end here, and I'm going to say we're not in an extinction event. We're in an extermination by a criminal group who delights in the misfortunes, not only the misfortunes, but the pain and the suffering of all life. And they're willing to go down with the ship just to get the thrill of actually experiencing what it's like to get rid of this magnificent existence, what we've had for billions of years, in which many different forms, possibly, I don't know. So I just thought I'd make this distinction. I think it's important. I think it's important to see this, and it may motivate people. I don't know, if extinction doesn't get you going, maybe extermination will. The idea that extermination, for us to rally around, those people of conscience come together and are able to rally around the way I rally around my friends and people that are still having that hope, that desire to make a difference for the better. And I think this is what's required. And I'm just saying, it's important to distinguish when we're being exterminated, and extinction is something that happened many times over, it appears, in the history of our planet. Extinction is something that can happen at random, apparently. A meteor hits us, but this is not at random. This was by design, so that's why I call it an extermination. It's not an extinction. Sorry to be so glum, but I'm feeling the difficulty of making my work anymore, and I will continue. I will continue. I know I will continue to make work, but it's very difficult. It's very difficult, as I'm sure it's very difficult for people of conscience who understand this and don't just sit back and accept their reality as well. Somebody from outside is doing this to me and I just accept it. No, no, that's not how we need to be. This is not the nature of humanity. And we need to fight this from a very fundamental level of hope now. This is where I'm beginning to feel the fight within myself, to have that hope. And whatever I decide to do, I guess that's it's going to be the result. The work that I produce will have to be based on hope. Otherwise, there's no point in doing it.